It was a sunny day in Burbank. Cinnamon and Son were at the local park to relax since it was his day off from his work from the music store. He loves to spend time in at the park since he usually sits there under one of his favorite spots under a tree to just relax or maybe read a book from time to time. But for the past year or so, as he had been sitting there during the summertime, he has been seeing this particular girl this young woman by the name Dot Warner. He knew about her, that she used to be an actor within the film industry in town. Ever since then, he had actually had a small crush on her, but he has never actually approached her in any matter. He hasn't even talked to her in such any way. Every time when he sees that when she sits at either on a bench or on the fountain, even when he's in the area walking by, he just wish that he could just stop there and talk to her. But every time when it happens, it is something there's almost something inside him that makes him just continue walking without even saying a word. Every time when he brought up to his friends, they tell him, they usually tell him, Cinnamon, why don't you just talk to her? Break the silence, break the ice. Maybe just have a conversation with her. If his friends had any idea, since Dot was a very beautiful young woman around the same age as himself, he was a little bit shy to talk to her at first, but he usually just wanted to talk to her. Even his friends have as a good point, because one day he may have to break the silence and break the ice, as was matter speaking, to talk to her. Even it might be a little bit hard at the beginning, at first, but he realized someday he may have to do it. And today, when he sits under his favorite tree, he sees that Dot sits at the fountain by herself. So he decided maybe it is today when I'm going to ask her, or at least talk to her. So he stood up, walked slowly towards the fountain, and even though normally he just walked by her, or without even looking at her, but instead, this time, he told himself, this time I'm gonna do it. So he walked over to her and then said, hi. And she looked at him, smiled, said hi. Nice day we have. She nodded and said, yeah, it is a very nice day. May I sit? She nodded and he sat down next to her and he introduced himself as Cinnamon Son. And she said her name was Dot Warner, which he nodded and you only knew. So, since she was well known in Burbank, so it wasn't much any secret about that, though. He said. She nodded and laughed, yet even though she is no longer within the film industry anymore, she said she's still well recognized by most of the people in town. Even though that he didn't know though, because now suddenly he had broken this ice barrier, basically. After only a few minutes, he was actually, at first he felt nervous, a little bit tense, but after a few minutes, he felt like he was calm, confident, at least comfortable. They start talking about almost anything, actually. Mostly about how their day had been so far, what they do for a living. It turns out that Dot actually works at a small flower shop, and when she asks him that he works at this music store in one particular street, and she's had big eyes and said that the store she works at, this flower shop, is actually not that far from his job, maybe just 2 blocks away. He looks stunned. He says like, no way, you're kidding. She shook her head and said no. And he asked for the name of the flower shop. And she gave it. And he realized he actually had walked by that place so many times without knowing it. Both started laughing about it. And since they had no idea they worked so close to each other without realizing it. And he said like, I have been walking by that place so many times before even realized that you worked there. I'm surprised though, but I mean, don't take me wrong, that place has amazing flowers to choose from. Yeah, I mean, I like it, and it's actually better, even more a bit calmer than usual. I mean, back in when I was an actor with my brothers, um, it was a little bit more hectical, more stress hours, but working at a flower shop is actually something I really like to. Understandable, he said. Then suddenly she heard that Cinnamon's stomach was growling. She asked him, Are you getting hungry? Yeah, I am, actually, he said. And, I know this perfect small diner around the corner that serves the best pasta in town. If you like, we can go there to have something to eat. Yeah, sure, I don't mind. So they went to this small diner, and at this place, after they've been having a dinner, and he's like, You weren't kidding. This is the absolute best pasta I had in a long time. She smiled and said she usually goes her either by herself or with some of her friends. Well, I will definitely recommend this place to some of my friends and co-workers for sure, he said. Then she asked him if he was originally from Burbank or from somewhere else. He said he was actually from a small town in Midwest, and that he was actually recommended to move here by a friend who lives in Burbank. He told her the reason why he moved there because back home there wasn't much any opportunities for someone in his age to find a good career, and he was actually considering to move somewhere else. But since he had a good friend who lived in Burbank, and he had been telling his friend that he was considered to move, and his friend actually recommended to make the move to Burbank. So for the first couple of months, he lived with his friend until he had enough money to afford his own apartment. And he could not be more proud and happier to have such a good friend. And ever since then, he had been working at this music store, and he loved the place. And after that, he couldn't have been happier to move this big city. Even though Dottie did ask him if he did miss his home. He said, yeah, but I do still have a contact with my family back home. Of course, I do miss them, but they knew that I have probably had a better chance of finding some good opportunity here. And after they had left the small diner, they were about to walk their separate ways when Cinnamon asked if she wanted to maybe hang out with him sometimes. Like, hang out. But then she said, Are you trying to ask me out on a date? She said with a smile and giggle. Maybe. But yes, I am actually, he said. Yeah, I would like that. How about we go to the movies on Friday? Yes, sounds like a good idea. Then she gave him her phone number and a quick kiss on the cheek and left. Cinnamon stood there, dumbfounded, stunned, taken aback, all at the same time. He was like, what just happened? Like 25 minutes ago, they were in the park, having a small conversation, and then went to a small diner to have something to eat, and now he got a phone number and their first official date on Friday. He was really dumbfounded. But when he got home, he called his best friend, the same friend who actually made him to move to Burbank in the first place. He told his friend all about it. Wow, you really talked to her for once? Yeah. I was actually not considering to do it, but I'm glad I did. And now we are going on our first date on Friday. Whoa, back up. You, Dot, on a date? Are you serious? Uh-huh. Wow. I didn't see that coming, dude. Me either, said Cinnamon with a laugh in the background. You know, I actually like her a lot more than I should expected. Well, let me know when the date went. For sure, he said. For the next couple of days, Cinnamon was actually quite nervous and excited at the same time about his first date with Dot. But on Friday, he waited outside the movie theater at 6 p.m. and when he saw her walking up in a light blue dress, he was like, "Wow, you look quite amazing. You don't look so bad yourself," she said with a smile. And they actually walked in and decided to see this comedy movie. Both laughed so much they couldn't stop laughing even afterwards. They went to a small diner just around the corner because the movie was about 2 hours and they were actually getting hungry. And after that, he was actually very happy. This was actually his first date in a long time ever since he moved to Burbank. But even Dot actually had a good time herself. In fact, she told him that she really loved her date. And before they were to separate ways again, before she jumped in a taxi outside the diner, they proposed another date. Maybe in the next week at that. So they decided that. But unfortunately, that day when they were supposed to have on their date about a week later, on a Friday, Cinnamon actually called Dot to say that he won't be unable to do so because his boss had asked him if he could do some overtime, and even though he was sort of not want to do it, but the boss actually told him if he would do this overtime, he would get some more extra paid for it. And that's something that Cinnamon could use, so he accepted. And even when he told Dot, she was a bit disappointed, but she agreed. But they decided to go on Saturday, the day after. On Saturday, they actually went to a small restaurant in the area, having a good romantic dinner. Even then, when Cinnamon actually realized he had fallen in love with her, but he didn't mention that to her at all. But after about a couple of weeks, Dot actually confessed to Cinnamon that she actually had fallen in love with him. And he admitted the same thing, and she was a bit surprised, but both agreed not to make it official yet. Because they had only been dating for about a couple of weeks, and they just want to be sure, maybe after 2 or 3 months at most, just to see if there was actually if this could have been a serious relationship. And it actually did serve that. After 3 months, they made it official. Both were actually quite happy to have made it such strong relationship. Even as for some time to time, when Cinnamon actually wished that he could see Dot. Sometimes he had unable to do so due to his work or her work. But even when he had told his friends all about that, now that Dot and himself are now an official couple, his friends was like, "Wow, dude, you really made it that far." Yeah, I'm quite surprised to be honest, like you did actually made it. I mean, think about it. Remember, when you first told when you told us about your crush on Dot, you were too nervous to even talk to her. You were so unsure if you even had any future with her at all, or even you can have a simple conversation with her. Yes, I remember that, he said with a chuckle, but I'm quite happy with the one I love the most in the whole world. Yeah, understandable that though, his friend said. But one of his friends said, "So, have you ever thought of maybe, settle down with her one day in the future? Cinnamon actually hadn't even thought about that, but he said, um, if it goes that long enough, perhaps I might be settle down with her one day in the future. But so far we had only been together for about 3 months, so a bit too early, but I suppose maybe that could happen in future. But at the moment, I'm not so sure though, but I hope at least. His friends nodded and said, who knows? It might happen. And even though Cinnamon actually wished that could happen, in fact, even though he didn't admit to his friends, but he actually had some dreams about her and him to be as married, have a family together. It just having a great time, knowing how much he loves Dot. She makes him feel so happy, really happy inside, and that is something he'd never want to regret to had happened ever. One day when Dot and Cinnamon had been together for about 4 months, he had asked her if she was willing to meet his family for the first time. Since they hadn't been together for a few months, and he was curious to know if she was ready to meet his family. After all, he had already met her two brothers, so she agreed. But even though deep down in her heart she was really nervous and a bit afraid that Cinnamon's family would not accept her or even like her. But he noticed something about that he still told her, don't have to worry. They will love you. I mean, you're a really outgoing, very energetic person, so you don't have to be worried about them. He told her that that his siblings might be a little bit, can be a little bit energetic, but they love him. And since he had only talked to his siblings over a phone or a FaceTime like that, so they at least know about her. But when they arrived to his hometown, the feeling about meeting his family for the first time was even intensifies. Had it even more stronger. She was like, she wanted to just turn around and walk away. But in the end, she didn't. And her fears vanished. And he was right. His family was very respectful, very lovable family. Even though his siblings could have been a little bit energetic, but they were actually respectful. Sure that they made some jokes like, "So, Cinnamon, when are you going to marry Dot and have a family with her?" While they were having dinner, and he was like, "Whoa, it's a little bit too early to ask that though, but I don't know. Maybe one day," he said with a smile. That made her smile and blush a little bit. But after first meeting with Cinnamon's family, she didn't regret it. And in fact, after 3 years, Cinnamon actually thought if he was ready to ask her to take the next level or the next step in their relationship. He actually took Dot to a small diner or a small restaurant in town, and he did propose to her. And she said yes immediately. She didn't hesitate, and she really couldn't hesitate. The love she had for Cinnamon's son was so strong. And in fact, they decided to have a small, close wedding with close friends and family. And when they revealed to their families and friends about this new engagement, everyone was super excited, especially Dot's brothers and Cinema's family. Well, his parents was really happy to that was gonna happen, and his siblings was like, finally he's gonna settle down. but they joked around. It happened, and after the small wedding, they had a small party though. Even even both families could see how happy Dot and Cinnamon were together. Sure, they were just a lot of different feelings back from start, but now seeing how happy they were together, and they actually they rented a small cabin by a lake outside town for about a week. Sure, they wish that they could either go to Hawaii or Paris for honeymoon, but since they didn't have the formula for it, but no matter where they went on their honeymoon, they were happy to that. And just barely 2 years after they had been married, Dot and Cinnamon's son announced to both families and friends they were expecting a baby within the next few months. And both families were really overjoyed. None of them could even expect it. But when they revealed they was expecting a daughter, they were really overjoyed. But again, none of them could even expect that. And then, a few months later, the daughter was born. They named the daughter Mary. Mary was really energetic like her mother when she was young. She loved to help around at the home, and even sometimes she spent time with her mom at the flower shop. And in fact, growing up, knowing that her mom used to be an actor along with her uncles, even though that she loved to acting sometimes in school, but she saw another dream of herself. In fact, she wanted to be working with flowers. Ever since she was like 10, when she used to help her mom at the flower shop, it was the best dream ever. Ever since when she was just even younger than 10, she loved the flowers. Roses, daisies, all the kinds of flowers that she loved them. And in fact, she even grew her own flowers in their small house in the backyard that they bought later, sometimes after she was born. She loved that. And in fact, she couldn't have been happier to be working at the flower shop with her mom when she was a bit older. And if something did happen though, because one day, when the flower shop's owner decided to retire, and in fact, she gave the shop over to Dot. And even Dot wasn't really expecting that to happen, but she was happy to take it over rather from the being closed. And Mary, she actually became a full-time employee at this small flower shop, along with her mother and a few others. Mary, though, she eventually taken over this small flower shop from her mom when she did retire. And that was something she couldn't wish not had happened sooner. But she really loved that. At some point, she even fell in love with a boy around the same age as herself, and they got married and had 2 daughters and 1 son. After all of this, Cinnamon's son and Dot could have been happier to be with the one they loved the most of the whole world. Even for Cinnamon's son, he really didn't know what to do, because he realized if he had even talked to Dot at that time, all those years ago at the park, none of this would even have happened. He would never have been married with Dot, or Mary would even be born, and for that, he really don't regret a single day that he did ask her. He really loves Dot more than anything. And Dot, though, she really loves Cinnamon's son so much. And even despite after all of this, he really is the one that makes her smile every single day. And for that, she could have been more happier to be with a true soulmate. And this is how Dot and Cinnamon's son, for the true love, got a family together The end.